What President Clinton did, he was impeached, he lost his license to practice law, he had to pay
an $850,000 fine to one of the women.
President Clinton did. He was impeached. He lost his license to practice law. He had to pay an $850,000 fine to one of the women, Paula Jones, who's also here tonight. And I will tell you that when Hillary brings up a point like that, and she talks about words that I said 11 years ago, I think it's disgraceful, and I think she should be ashamed of herself if you want to know the truth.
Can we please hold the applause?
I think it's disgraceful, and I think she should be ashamed of herself if you want to know the truth.
Can we please hold the applause?
I want to follow up on that. I'm going to let you talk about it now.
Because everything he just said is absolutely false, but I'm not surprised. Really? In the first debate,
the audience needs to calm down.
Because everything he just said is absolutely false, but I'm not surprised. Really? In the first debate,
the audience needs to calm down.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
We want to remind the audience to please not talk out loud. Please do not applaud. You're just wasting time.
And
number two, Michelle Obama.
So obscene that many of us were worried about our children hearing it when we turn on the TV. And to make matters worse, it now seems very clear that this isn't an isolated incident. It's one of countless examples of how he has treated women his whole life. And I have to tell you that I listen to all of this, and I feel it so personally. And I'm sure that many of you do too, particularly the women. And I'm sure that many of you do too,
particularly the women.
And I can't believe that I'm saying that a candidate for president of the United States has bragged about sexually assaulting women.
Last August in Arkansas, the President and First Lady renewed old acquaintances with state troopers who used to guard the former Little Rock First family. One of the troopers, Larry Patterson, told CNN that he took one of the women to a send-off rally when Governor Clinton headed to Washington for his inauguration.
Hillary saw her. She told me, she said, I know who she is. I know what she is here for. I said, no, she is a friend of mine. She said, no, she is not. Get the whore out of here. Get the whore out of here. And she said, no, she is not. Get the whore out of here.
The troopers say they helped Clinton pick up women up to the day he left for Washington to become president. They say they did not speak out about any of this during the campaign because their supervisor, Buddy Young, told them they would be fired. Buddy Young denies ever having those conversations and says the troopers' allegations about the Clintons are false.
I don't think that's true. I certainly never saw it happen. I was never a part of it. Don't know of it ever happening.
President Clinton has since appointed Young to a federal job. And Young says the troopers are making the allegations because they are jealous they did not get appointments as well.
After President Clinton appointed me to the job that I have with FEMA as regional director.
During our interview, he received this call from senior White House advisor Bruce Lindsay.
Hello?
Buddy Bruce.
Yeah.
What do you know?
I'm on the phone right now, Bruce, in the middle of an interview.
With who?
ABC, is that right?
Yeah.
ABC, yeah.
Okay, we may need you to do CNN, too, at some point. Will you call me? Will you have them page me after you get off?
Call
the White House and ask them to page me while you hold, or have me call you right back?
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Thanks.
They say they did not speak out about any of this during the campaign because their supervisor, Buddy Young, told them they would be fired.
I don't think that's true. I certainly never saw it happen. I was never a part of it. Don't know of it ever happening.
President Clinton has since appointed Young to a federal job. During our interview, he received this call from senior White House advisor Bruce Lindsay.
In the middle of an interview.
With who?
ABC, is that right?
Yeah.
ABC, yeah.
Okay, we may need you to do CNN too at some point. Will you call me? Will you have them page me after you get off? Call the White House and ask them to page me while you hold, or have me call you right back?
Okay.
But Hillary Rodham Clinton fanned the flames today when she lashed out at the president's accusers. In a series of interviews with the wire services, she called the allegations outrageous, terrible stories that will end up in the garbage can. She suggested that the stories were planted for political and financial reasons. Mrs. Clinton said it's sad, especially here in the Christmas season. People, for their own purposes, would be attacking my family.
No. And I have nothing to add to what I said in my statement.
First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton joined the president in an interview with Arkansas reporters and served them cookies. She denied the accusations were spoiling her holiday.
No, we're having a good time.
Ruin Christmas for you?
No. Christmas is too big in our family.
The belief that you can do anything you want to a woman, it is cruel. It's frightening. And the truth is, it hurts. It hurts. It's like that sick, sinking feeling you get when you're walking down the street, minding your own business, and some guy yells out vulgar words about your body. Or maybe we don't want to believe that there are still people out there who think so little of us as women.
Don't invite Michelle Obama and Hillary Clinton to the same party. Apparently, Michelle can't stand Hillary. It all goes back to 2008 when Hillary Clinton made fun of Barack Obama's inspirational campaign for the presidency.
The sky will open, the light will come down, celestial choirs will be singing.
I think Michelle hasn't really been able to bury the hatchet after 2008. You know, she's not a political person.
According to Kate Anderson Brower, author of the new book, First Women, The Grace and Power of America's Modern First Ladies, Hillary and Bill Clinton have rarely been invited to stay for dinner in the Obama White House.
Michelle Obama looks down her nose at Hillary Clinton. You know, there's a sense that the Clintons are all about money.
And if any of us had raised a daughter like Hillary Clinton, we would be so proud. We would be proud.
Michelle Obama, who I know have spoken positively of in the past, she said last week about what your husband said on that tape. She said, this was not just a lewd conversation. This wasn't just locker room banter. This was a powerful individual speaking freely and openly about sexually predatory behavior and actually bragging about kissing and groping women. In terms of what he actually said on the tape, not saying he did it, but what he said, the behavior he described to you, is that sexual assault?
No, that's not the sexual assault. He didn't say he did it. And I see many women coming to him and giving phone numbers and want to work for him, or inappropriate stuff from women, and they know he's married. So
you've seen that?
Oh yes, of course. It was in front of me.
In front of you?
In front of me. And I said, like, why you need to give your number to my husband?
She went on to say, Michelle Obama, she talked about that feeling of terror and violation that too many women have felt when someone has grabbed them or forced himself on them, and they've said no, but he didn't listen.
Who didn't listen? My husband didn't do anything.
No, I think she was just talking in general about...
Oh, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. I mean, she should also look maybe the people who supported her, what they're doing. So, I'm not surprised she said that.
So thank you very much for coming, and these four very courageous women have asked to be here, and it was our honor to help them. And I think they're each going to make just an individual short statement, and then we're going to have a little meeting, and we'll see you at the debate.
I'm Juanita Broderick, and I'm here to support Donald Trump. I tweeted recently, and Mr. Trump retweeted it, that actions speak louder than words. Mr. Trump may have said some bad words, but Bill Clinton raped me and Hillary Clinton threatened me. I don't think there's any comparison.
Okay, thank you all very much. We appreciate it.
Mr. Trump, you touched a woman without their consent. Mr. Trump, why did you say you touched a woman without consent, Mr. Trump?
Why don't y'all ask Bill Clinton that? Why don't y'all go ask Bill Clinton that? Go ahead and ask Hillary as well.
Mr. Trump, you touched a woman without their consent. Mr. Trump, why did you say you touched a woman without consent, Mr. Trump?
Why don't y'all ask Bill Clinton that? Why don't y'all go ask Bill Clinton that? Go ahead and ask Hillary as well.
Bill Clinton that. Why don't y'all go ask Bill Clinton that? Go ahead and ask Hillary as well.
Woman without their consent. Mr. Trump, why did you say you touched a woman without consent, Mr. Trump?
Why don't y'all ask Bill Clinton that? Why don't y'all go ask Bill Clinton that? Go ahead and ask Hillary as well.
Well, you owe the president an apology because, as you know very well, your campaign, Sidney Blumenthal, he's another real winner that you have.
Sidney, we all talk about where was the press when Jack Kennedy was having all of his affairs. Isn't this fair game?
This strikes me as a large, deliberate distraction. I think that what we do know is that there's a small, far right-wing group of people who, through these disgruntled state troopers, have put out uncorroborated, salacious details, and through that have been able to pull the strings of the mainstream media and sending them, I think, like mindless gumshoes down blind alleys.
On another sensitive matter, Mr. Clinton promised he would cooperate with federal investigators looking into a failed Arkansas savings and loan. Investigators want to see a file taken from the office of the White House Deputy Legal Counsel, Vincent Foster, who committed suicide last July.
If anybody called here and asked to see it, I'd turn it over to the lawyers and we would cooperate with the law enforcement like we always, of course we would. We would cooperate with the law enforcement like we always, of course we would.
When Vince Foster left his White House office on that July day in 1993, he told his secretary that he would be back. But the deputy White House counsel and boyhood friend of Bill Clinton never returned. And almost 3 years later, theories and speculation about his mysterious death live on. On July 20th, 1993, Vincent Foster's body was found here in Fort Marcy Park in Northern Virginia, just outside of the District of Columbia. But that's about the only thing about Foster's death that all parties can agree on. How Foster's body got here, even how Foster died, is still not clear. Police say Foster walked to the edge of this steep berm, sat down and pressed a 1913 .38 caliber pistol deep against the back of his mouth and pulled the trigger. The gunshot wound should have been extremely gory, because a large caliber handgun often leaves a large wound, while the heart typically keeps pumping, leaving a lot of blood and brain tissue called blowback all over the weapon. There was none. The coroner said the exit wound for the .38 caliber bullet was only about 1 inch wide. There was an unusually small amount of blood under Foster's head, and no bone fragments. No bullet was found either, even though searchers managed to find all sorts of ammunition dating back to the Civil War. Powder burns indicate Foster's hands were not on the grip of the gun when it was fired. His teeth were not damaged from the recoil of the .38. There was no trace of soil or grass on Foster's shoes, even though he supposedly walked 700 feet through the park. No one in the park that day ever saw Foster alive. No one reported hearing a gunshot. Foster's fingerprints were not on the weapon. Foster's wife had trouble identifying the gun as her husband's. The .38 was made from 2 guns, fitting the classic profile of a hard-to-trace drop gun, often used to make murders look like suicide.
Mr. Clinton promised he would cooperate with federal investigators looking into a failed Arkansas savings and loan. Investigators want to see a file taken from the office of the White House Deputy Legal Counsel, Vincent Foster, who committed suicide last July.
We would cooperate with the law enforcement like we always, of course we would.
We would cooperate with the law enforcement like we always, of course we would.
The plane carrying Commerce Secretary Ron Brown has reportedly crashed in the former Yugoslavia. Commerce Secretary Brown was in Croatia leading a high-level American business delegation that represented some 15 companies specializing in infrastructure, transport, energy, tourism, and financial services. You're looking at some pictures now of Brown visiting there with military leaders. David, have you heard anything at all at this point that some of those business leaders might have been on that plane as well?
Well, I think that's certainly the assumption that some of those passengers, particularly if it's the high number of 26 passengers, that some of those passengers would have been these business executives.
Rains and rugged terrain are hindering rescue efforts in the jagged mountains towering over the Croatian seaside town of Dubrovnik. Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm.
A commercial mission brought U.S. Secretary of Commerce Ron Brown to the Balkans. The trip to Bosnia and Croatia was meant to complement the U.S.-led military mission by emphasizing the civilian side of the Dayton Peace Accord. Secretary Brown and a delegation of high-level U.S. executives first traveled to Tuzla on board the very same plane that U.S. Defense Secretary William Perry flew in just last week.
A somber president and First Lady went to the Brown home in Washington to comfort the family. As chairman of the Democratic National Committee, Brown was influential in steering Bill Clinton to the White House in 1992. Later, the president traveled to the Commerce Department to reassure workers there. He called Brown one of the best advisors he ever had. Mr. Clinton was apparently clearly moved.
The State Department, because all the weapons sales under the table are going through the State Department. That's why Ron Brown was murdered. Ron Brown tried for the first time to take away the unfair State Department monopoly on illegal weapons and drug deals. Because the drug money is paying for the weapons. The brand new weapons are sold by agents of Israel or this.
No, is this a conclusion you've drawn based on your knowledge of this?
Yeah, all the weapons sales under the table are going through the State Department.
We seek there is no place a tough campaign opponent. She possesses an extraordinary intelligence. I have known Hillary Clinton as a friend, a colleague, a source of counsel, and a tough campaign opponent. She possesses an extraordinary intelligence and a remarkable work ethic. I am proud that she will be our next Secretary of State.
All of this happened under Hillary Clinton's watch, it would actually be Secretary Clinton.
In his first television interview since criminal charges were dropped against him, licensed arms dealer Mark Turi says the Obama administration, with the cooperation of Hillary Clinton's State Department, tried and failed to make him the fall guy for a 2011 covert weapons program to arm Libyan rebels that spun out of control.
I would say 100% I was victimized. To somehow discredit me, throw me under the bus, do whatever it took to protect their, next presidential candidate.
5 years into the investigation, Turi says the Justice Department dropped the case to avoid public disclosure of the weapons program that was designed to force the ouster of Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi. Turi exchanged emails in 2011 with then U.S. envoy to the Libyan opposition Chris Stevens. A day after the exchange about Turi's State Department application to sell weapons, Clinton wrote this email to aide Jake Sullivan. Quote, FYI, the idea of using private security experts to arm the opposition should be considered.
All the weapons sales under the table are going through the State Department. That's why Ron Brown was murdered. Ron Brown tried for the first time to take away the unfair State Department monopoly on illegal weapons and drug deals. Most African American men are not going to condone murder and assassinations and so forth when they find out about it. Togo West
No, you think there's something, I'm missing something here. The Afro-American man is not like...
Generally.
Generally. So you feel that Colin Powell is a different cut of general than these other guys we've been talking about?
Oh, absolutely. Colin Powell's... The wonderful thing about some of the African-American men I've met is they'll tell truth.
Why would they allow these guys to rise in rank then?
As puppets, thinking that they will, be able to make them do certain things, because psychologically they're innocent, they're naive. They cannot believe that our government has got hit squads, that there's group sex going on, that they are giving people money in exchange, for their services. Mercenary training is going on in the Army and the Air Force at the highest circles.
My grandparents knew these values weren't reserved for one race. They could be passed down to a half Kenyan grandson or a half Asian granddaughter. In fact, they were the same values Michelle's parents, the descendants of slaves, taught their own kids. Members of the Congressional Black Caucus and the whole CBC family. In fact, if you want to give Michelle and me a good send-off, and that was a beautiful video, but don't just watch us walk off into the sunset now. Get people registered to vote. If you care about our legacy, realize everything we stand for is at stake. All the progress we've made is at stake in this election. My name may not be on the ballot, but our progress is on the ballot. Tolerance is on the ballot. Democracy is on the ballot. Justice is on the ballot. Good schools are on the ballot. Ending mass incarceration, that's on the ballot right now. And there is one candidate who will advance those things. And there is another candidate whose defining principle, the central theme of his candidacy, is opposition to all that we've done. I will consider it a personal insult, an insult to my legacy, if this community lets down its guard and fails to activate itself in this election. You want to give me a good send-off? Go vote!
People of color, wake up! Jail for Hillary!
The world should know about the crimes the Clinton family has committed against the country of Haiti.
The Bill Clinton Foundation stole money! Haiti's earthquake relief money!
They pretend they like us. They've been deceiving us. It's time for us to wake up.
Are you guys immigrants?
Yes! I'm from Haiti.
You support Donald Trump?
Yes, yes!
Bill Clinton signed laws to incarcerate black people. We don't want the Clintons. They are criminals. They are evil.
You guys have got to try the cold chop.
Great. What happened? It's a beautiful day in New York.
They had to quickly call her motorcade to come up and pick up Hillary Clinton because they weren't expecting her to leave at that hour. She was apparently having some medical problems.
As we begin with the breaking news about Hillary Clinton's death, Hillary Clinton's doctor has just revealed the presidential candidate has been diagnosed with pneumonia.
That you take some neurocognitive test. Would
Okay, thank you all very much. Where's Jennifer? Where's Jennifer? Did Jennifer leave? Where's Jennifer? Where's Jennifer? Did Jennifer leave?
Where's Jennifer? Did Jennifer leave?
I think all of the people who were introduced and those who were not introduced, all of whom have made their contributions to America, many inspired by President Roosevelt. And a special thanks to the members of the Roosevelt family who are here, and to one who is not, Eleanor. I know that because, as all of you famously learned when I served as president, my wife, now the Secretary of State, was known to commune with Eleanor on a regular basis. My wife, now the Secretary of State, was known to commune with Eleanor on a regular basis. And so she called me last night on her way home from Peru to remind me to say that Eleanor had talked to her and reminded her that I should say that.
Or maybe we don't want to believe that there are still people out there who think so little of us as women.